Well, hello, everybody. This is Brian, keeping Walt in Disney. And we're going to talk about the happiest millionaire tonight. And we're going to have a good time talking about fortuosity and Fred McMurray and all kinds of great actors. Just one of those great Disney classic films. And can't wait to get started. So I'm going to invite Jared into the room here, and we'll go ahead and have a good time. So, what's everybody's favorite song from Happiest Millionaire? Over. Waiting for
Hello.
Jared. There he is. What's
How
your
are you?
favorite? What's your favorite song from Happiest Millionaire?
Are we dancing?
Oh, okay.
That's,
Well,
we'll talk about it later, but Are We Dancing is my favorite Disney song of all time.
oh, really? That's great.
Yes.
Well, my favorite is "Let's Have a Drink on It." I just it's such a rousing number, full of full of dance and song and beer and Irish Barney and sentiment.
It's
So how you
unreal.
doing, Jared?
Good.
Been
How
a
are
Did you have
you?
a nice Christmas and New Year's?
I did. I went to go visit family in Tennessee. We went to, well, my mom lives in Sevierville, which is right by Pigeon
Yeah,
Forge.
out
And
in the Gatlinburg, Great Smoky Mountain area, right?
yes,
Okay.
we went to Dollywood, and actually today is
Ooh.
Dolly Parton's birthday. Did you know
Well, happy birthday, Dolly. Hope you didn't have to work 9 to 5.
that? Happy birthday! I looked it up. She was in uh, technically three Disney films. None of them were Disney. They were all either Touchstone or Hollywood.
Oh,
But she was in Romeo and Juliet, and then
okay.
a movie called Frank McCluskey CI,
All
and then back in
right.
'92 she starred in Straight Talk. So that's a fun little, fun little notes that you guys who are watching can just
Wow. I didn't
mark
think we were going to
down.
open up with Dolly Parton's Disney connections, but okay.
I mean,
We
hey,
go we go
whatever.
anywhere with these chats. You never know. So I guess can everybody hear us okay? I haven't heard any complaints. I see Kara and Elmer. One of my nieces is in here. Um,
Hello, everyone.
yeah. It, so many folks joined real quick, and then they saw that we're doing this and dropped off. So,
Oh no!
oh, stay longer.
Wait. So Celebration Disney, Jim, he said Dolly Parton was writing the music for a canceled animated feature. What?
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Sorry, I'm a big Dolly Parton fan, so, or at least I like her music in the
Mhm.
movies.
Midge and Tim asked if Paul Peterson was in this movie. He was. Yeah, briefly. he sang one song and ran off to St. Paul's. So we'll talk more about his involvement in the film. By Yum Pum Pum, My Peoples. That was the movie that Dolly Parton was going to write music for, a Disney film.
Oh,
Yeah. Hey, if you ever want to know anything about like Renaissance Disney, Celebration Disney is the man. He is. I think that's like his favorite era of Disney films, especially like the lesser known ones. Like, uh, oh, what's the one with? Oh my gosh! See, they're not even up front in my mind anymore. Like Treasure Planet or Atlantis. That's the one I
oh,
was thinking of. I think he's
oh,
a big
yes,
fan of
yes.
Atlantis. Well, let's I had a good Christmas and a great New Year's, and you turned me on to a new tradition. And what is that? Every New Year's Day, there's one movie that you absolutely have to watch.
I always have to watch the Dolly Parton classic, "The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas."
Oh,
Oh wait,
no.
no. Sorry, I have to watch The Happiest Millionaire.
Yeah, yeah. And I watched it that day as well, and I watched the whole thing today again.
Oh, it's so good. On January 1st, of course, it's the new year, and it's always my favorite one to just start the new year off.
Yeah.
Great music,
Uh-huh.
great. I mean, it's not like a deep story or anything like that, but it puts a smile on my face every time I watch it. So
It's such an upbeat film. I mean, the music really gets you going. Great characters, a great plot and storyline. A movie that I feel has a nice pace to it, even though if you watch the Roadshow version, which is the version
that's the
on
only way to watch
Disney
it.
Plus, the only way to
Yep.
watch it, you're going to spend 2 hours and 49 minutes with this movie. But what better? I can't, get up first thing on New Year's Day, maybe around 11, 12 o'clock, and put this on, eat the leftover snacky snacks from New Year's Eve. It's a good day.
It is. It really is.
So, The Happiest Millionaire was released in, I believe, June of 1967. And
It
uh,
was released on June 23rd, and June 23rd is my birthday.
oh, no wonder.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't born in 1967. We'll leave that for Mr. Brian Crawford.
I was born
Wait.
7 years after that. So sadly, this was Walt Disney's last film to be released, his last live action picture to be released during his
Mm,
lifetime. So,
yeah.
um, so a little bittersweet. We'll talk a little bit about Walt and his involvement, and we'll see some cool pictures of Walt. And but as we always do with our live chats here, we like to show off our goodies. But before that, let's just glance through the chat here. Chris is asking if Bolt and Chicken Little are among Jim's favorite Renaissance era films. I don't, I don't think so. In fact, I think I talked to Jim about Chicken Little, and he thinks it's one Disney film that should be unmade. But I don't want to speak for you, Jim. You can chime in if you want. Chris also says he likes "Watch Your Footwork." Yeah, that's a great song. I That's a good song, but
There
all
are
of them are
very,
great. Yeah,
yeah, I was going to say there are very few, if any, um, that are not good.
it was released after he died. Oh, yeah, it's right. Oh, the last film that Walt Disney had an involvement with
Yeah,
was
well,
this movie. But yeah, it was released after he died. I think the final film that was released while he was alive was Chris said it, "Follow Me, Boys," which we have done before.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is good too. No, the Happiest Millionaire, they finished principal photography on it before Walt died.
Yeah, he
So I
saw the
don't,
film.
yeah, he saw
He
the
saw it.
film,
Yep.
then he died,
Uh-huh.
and then there was a lot of like butchering of the film, I feel. But
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. All the different versions that came out. But when we get into the film, really, we're going to talk about the roadshow version, and we'll talk a little bit more about what a roadshow is. But show off our goodies. So go ahead. What do you got? What kind of
well,
happiest millionaire merch makes you happy?
see, you have some pretty awesome stuff I can see. First off, I forgot to pull out my DVD, but whatever.
Well, I have it.
Like
So
like I always do, I have my beta tape
Beta man.
and the VHS as well, the same version.
Yeah. If
But
you guys
then
have beta tapes and you want to get them featured on our show, just send them to Jared's house.
well, then later, so it was released twice on VHS in the 80s, and then later they
Twice.
did a second release. Yes. So they did this version.
Oh, okay. One of the just the slim cases. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have
Hmm.
that as well. And then Anchor Bay in the 90s, for some reason, they got a hold of a bunch of old Disney films, the live action stuff, and they did their own releases. And so they picked up The Happiest Millionaire and they released it. And Anchor
Uh-huh.
Bay was actually the first one to release the Roadshow edition, uh,
Okay.
because the first two releases were actually cut down to 144 minutes.
Hmm. Should we
Uh,
talk about roadshow? Does everybody know what a roadshow is? I got a few notes.
sure, if you want to talk about
Yeah.
Roadshow.
So a roadshow is kind of it was an opening of a film to a limited number of theaters, and usually these theaters were the nice ones, the really opulent, ornate movie houses back in the 20s. The road shows were really popular from the 20s, 30s, all the ways until the late 60s. And so, real upscale scale atmosphere. The film would open with like an overture and have an intermission halfway through, so you can go to the bathroom, which I
Mm-hmm.
wish Avatar had. And usually, like intermission music or an entr'acte, and then some exit music at the end. And when you watch Happiest Millionaire on Disney Plus, you get all that. You get an overture. You actually get a prelude, an overture, and then there's an intermission and the exit music. And these
Yes.
films were very long, much longer than the theatrical release version. Caleb says this is the first film I experienced an intermission. That's cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love
Well,
all those. Yeah, go ahead.
this is the longest Disney film.
Mhm. Oh yeah,
Under the Disney label, this is the
yeah,
longest Disney film. I mean, that's excluding like Touchstone or Hollywood or anything like that. But yeah, it's a long one, but
yeah.
I don't feel like it feels that long.
So due to the length of these films, they didn't really show any short subjects like a cartoon or a newsreel before. You get right into it with the overture. There weren't any promotional trailers, and like I said, they're all reserved seating, a little bit higher ticket price to get in. And then one really cool thing, and I wish I had it, was all the patrons would get a roadshow program, which had
Oh,
like I ordered a roadshow program for the Happiest Millionaire. I was going to show it to you guys, but it didn't arrive in time, so I'll just have to share that on Instagram later. But the souvenir programs would have photos and biographies of all the cast and even some of the crew members, and it would have like the credits. So typically, a roadshow film, when it ended, didn't have credits scroll through because you had them in your hand in the program. So
wow.
yeah, and like I said, really the 50s and 60s musicals and a lot of Hollywood epics were popular roadshow films. So films like Oklahoma, The Ten Commandments, South Pacific, Ben-Hur, Spartacus, Lawrence of Arabia, those, you know, large, large, very lengthy films. West Side Story, My Fair Lady, The Sound of Music was a roadshow. Oliver, Hello Dolly, and one of my favorites that you wouldn't think would be a roadshow film, but Tora, Tora, Tora. Have you ever seen that?
Oh, which I've actually never seen. I'm sorry, sorry, sorry.
All right, so here's some trivia. Who can name some of the Disney films that were presented in a roadshow format besides the one we're talking about? What was the first one? There were
Uh,
five. Five. There were five in total. One, two, three, four, five Disney films had roadshow releases. The first two were animated. The last three were live action.
are you asking me?
Yeah, or anybody in the chat.
I
So
mean, was Snow
1940.
White?
No,
Snow
Snow
White was
White was
not.
not a roadshow, but maybe it should have been. The first one was in 1940. Chris got one. That was the last one, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. Even though Walt Disney said after the failure of The Happiest Millionaire was going to be the last roadshow they did, they decided to do Bed Knobs. And Kara is right. Fantasia was the first one in 1940. If you can get your hands on that roadshow program, yeah, let me know. The second one was Sleeping Beauty, that was presented in roadshow format. And the
Hmm.
first live action film to be a roadshow film was probably Walt Disney's greatest film achievement.
Mary Poppins, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
right. Mary Poppins. Then this one, and then Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the Bedknobs one actually makes sense because
Hmm.
that kind of was the same way in their releases, how there was stuff cut out.
Oh, I know. That had so many different weird things going on. And uh, at least the last DVD release that I have is like the complete film with the full Portobello Road scenes
Mm-hmm.
and with a Flair song that David Tomlinson sings.
Yep.
So I love that version. I prefer it to any other. Yep. So unfortunately for Happiest Millionaire, it kind of came at a time when the market was a little oversaturated with road shows. Because once they saw that Mary Poppins and Sound of Music were super successful, every studio wanted to do road shows. So that was like what, 64? When did Sound of Music come out?
In
65?
65.
Like the yeah, the
Yeah,
next
Sound of
year.
Music was 65.
Uh-huh. And so every studio was rushing to get roadshow releases, and people just said, yeah, it's too much. It's too long. The tickets are more expensive. I will just go to my neighborhood theater and watch the regular theatrical release. And so Walt was like, all right, that's it. No more road shows until Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, which came out in 72.
Wait, but that kind of doesn't make any sense though, because Walt died before this was released.
Yeah, that doesn't, yeah, I know. So I'm not, I shouldn't say Walt Disney. It was Disney, the company. Yeah, thanks for correcting me.
Hey,
Yeah, but
I'm here to
apparently
help.
5 years later, uh, they they wanted to do it again. So I guess they didn't learn. But that was their last roadshow film. And yeah, speaking of Bed Knobs, I know Chris brought up the fact that Step in the Right Direction, the footage to that song was lost.
Which is such a bummer
I know.
because that's
It's
a
got to
great
be
song.
somewhere in the archive, sitting in a film can somewhere. It just has to be. They just haven't found it yet. Because that's an Angela Lansbury song that was cut
Hmm.
from the film. Yeah, that's too bad. So that's road shows for you. So all right, let's talk about our stuff. Since we talked about road show, I kind of wanted to just.
Well,
Elmer
the
says
only
it's the footage is in someone's garage. It could
it
be.
could
It could definitely be in
be
someone's
it
private collection.
totally
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. That's
Uh,
how
the
they
only
found
other
a
thing
lot of Oswald shorts because
was
somebody
in
had a lot of
someone's
Oswald.
garage.
Yep. Somebody in Japan, I think it was.
Well, they need to check out his garage or
Yeah,
her
go back to
garage.
that guy's garage. See if he's got bed knobs and broomsticks in there. So okay, so you
Um,
showed all your movies. You've got the album, and oh, I
and the
guess it's my turn, huh?
CD.
Yeah.
And then the only other things that I have are it was based on a book that was co-written by the real Cordelia Drexel Biddle
Uh huh.
and Kyle, oh my gosh, Crichton, who
Yeah.
actually, is the father of Michael Crichton, the author of Jurassic Park. Did you know that?
Wow. The Jurassic Park novels.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
You know,
And
showbiz
then I also,
kind of runs in the family.
it is, I know that's a big
Yeah.
thing. I was just talking about with people, with friends,
Mhm.
the whole thing about Nepo babies right now. But, if there wasn't a quote unquote Nepo baby, we wouldn't have Jurassic Park. So we're all good. Uh, and then I also have it is the screenplay in the book form for The Happiest Millionaire.
Oh, I've got to get my hands on that. Oh,
Yes.
all right.
So
So
that's
you have a
my,
CD too.
I do the CD
I
soundtrack.
want to ask of that CD. I have the soundtrack, but I bought it through Apple Music,
Okay.
and that has a. Does that have the Rittenhouse Square? Uh,
Off Rittenhouse Square.
off
Yes.
Rittenhouse Square.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that and it's sung by Richard Sherman, I believe.
Mhm. And
Yeah,
it also has it says bonus tracks. It won't be long till Christmas, the single version.
yeah, that's got a whole backstory itself too, because on the original, so this is the original album here that I have, and then Jared has it too. This is the
Which
original cast soundtrack album,
which by the
and
way, somebody in the chat commented and I absolutely agree and I apologize for not remembering who it is, but the cover for that soundtrack, oh, Blue Skies and Castles, that record cover is so good.
oh, is she in here? Blue Sky and Castles? Yeah, she's awesome.
So good. That cover is so good.
Yeah, fantastic cover. If you can get your hand, it comes in the stereo and mono. So actually, I have an extra one. So everybody that wants a copy of this, if you send me a direct message in the next couple of days, I'll randomly pick from all those who send me a direct message, and I'll send you a copy of this album. Let that sink in for a little bit. Okay. So don't leave the live chat, or I guess you could and then come back, but I'll send you this album to your house free of charge. I'll even pay for shipping. Send me a direct message and I will give you this album. So what we were talking about, Jared said on the CD there was this single, It Won't Be Long Till Christmas, and that was not on the original album because this album came out in 67, and Ann Shelton, who recorded that single, did so on a 1969 Buena Vista 45 release, like a 45 RPM little record, kind of like one of these little
Mm-hmm.
7-inch records. And she did that in 69, along with another song on the flip side. Let's see, I wrote it down here. She recorded that song with the John Aldous Choir and music by Tutti Camarata. And on the flip side was a song called A Christmas Star. And it's a really cool, neat little 45 if you can find a copy. It's got a picture of like this little Christmas tree with the words from the song It Won't Be Long Till Christmas, and little Mickey is kind of looking up at it with a Santa hat. I don't have it in my collection, but yeah. So it's kind of a bummer that the Greer Garson version that she sings with Fred McMurray wasn't released on that soundtrack. I don't think she really liked how she sounded in it. I don't know the whole story behind why it wasn't included, but it's kind of a neat thing that they put it in later. I love both
Mm-hmm.
versions. So if you subscribe to my Dropbox, I can drop you the actual Greer Garson song, which was given to me by Chris. So Chris created an album for me with all the songs that were like kind of from the film. So I can
Chris
share that with you guys.
Chris
Yeah.
said that he's not a fan with the strange echo effect they used for that album. And to be honest, Chris, I don't. I guess I need to listen to it again because I didn't
Yeah.
hear that.
Well, oh, I think a lot of the songs were actually taken straight from the film, with the exception
Uh,
of one. It must have been some kind of remastering. Yeah, Let Them Go.
Let them go.
Oh, is that the echo effect you're talking about? Not sure. But this is the official album. So I'll show you the things I have. I've got, of course, the DVD. I got a lot of albums. This little cute little 45 with John Wallace singing Fortuosity, and on the other side is Watch Your Footwork. So the soundtrack album has a lot of great photos in it. So it had it shared first. It does like a brief synopsis of the film.
I mean, that doesn't look so brief, but
Yeah, and then you've got every song, and then not the entire lyrics for every song, but a good portion of them. So there's Fortuosity, and so I guess I'll just kind of explain the plot a little bit as we go through this. So it kind of starts with John Wallace showing up to the house, off this little ice truck, and then there's oh, whoop, sorry about that. I'm dropping everything here.
Mm-hmm.
All right, technical difficulties. Let me fix that. Sorry, boy, was that loud?
It was odd.
Yeah. What's wrong with that? And that great picture. And then the next song is Valentine Candy. After they punch out her boyfriend or wannabe boyfriend, she sings this song Valentine Candy. And then when John Wallace decides he wants to take the job, because when he first shows up at the house, he's like, I'm not sure this is the place I want to work, because it's just kind of a crazy household with the eccentric Mr. Biddle and his ways, and his chocolate cake diets and things. I'll always be Irish is a song and kind of interesting way to accept the job. I love this
Totally.
picture of Mrs. Worth, who dances in part of that song too. And then you've got the Bayam Pum Pum. So after Cordy goes off to school, there's this big dance where she meets John Davidson for the first time. And then there's your favorite song, Are We Dancing?
The best. It is the best song. It is so
Yeah, it is a great song.
Their voices are fan-freaking-tastic. We talked about this a little bit in our one and only genuine original family band one, but they're so good together.
Or The Happiest Millionaire Part 2.
The Happiest Millionaire Part 2, like in the Dakotas. But they have great chemistry together, not only as like a couple when they're acting, but their singing sounds so fantastic together. And some of my favorite Disney songs of all time are sung by those two.
Chris said the phone booth from this movie is inside Club 33. Give me a sec. I'll show you a picture of that. So I love that they actually their first dance is a little one step that lasts for 5 seconds, and then they dance to Are We Dancing as a waltz, and then kind of just waltz their way out onto the patio and have a nice little romantic dance there. And then Detroit, which is such a great song. One of the, we'll talk about the scene a little bit later, but that's kind of like Angie's dream is to go to Detroit and build automobiles. He has such a passion and drive for that. That's really what makes Cordy fall in love with him. That he's got these dreams, these huge dreams to manufacture automobiles and make his money that way. Not just inherit the tobacco business from his family. Like he wants to do something big. There are those is another great song, and there's Gladys Cooper, Geraldine Page, and Tommy Steele. Just such a fun song. And towards the end of the film is Let's Have a Drink on It, when the marriage is in danger and John Wallace goes to the bar to save the day in a very interesting way. He kind of causes a scene where John gets arrested or Angie gets arrested, and it's funny. And then this picture, which I posted on my Instagram. Oh, and I thought they cut the phone booth off, which Chris mentioned, said there, at the bottom of the staircase, there's that phone booth.
Yeah. That
Greer Garson, she's in there, that she calls like the employment agency and says, yeah, I think John's going to take the job.
Yep.
I've heard, I got into a couple of conversations regarding that phone booth, and some people, cast members say, yes, it's there. Other cast members say it's not the same phone booth. I don't know who's to believe. It's one of those.
Yeah, I've actually heard the same thing.
Yeah, unverified rumors, because I've heard from some pretty famous Disney people say that it's not, as well as some pretty famous people say that it is. So it kind of looks like it. I've been in that phone booth before. So when I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, it kind of does. It could be like the same from the set or a replica. Who knows? I don't know. And then I have this other album, The Happiest Millionaire. This is the Camerata versions where he took all the songs and just kind of reorchestrated them and had his group, the Mike Sam Singers, sing a lot of the songs. Well, pretty
I
much,
love how 60s that
yeah. And
looks.
then when you're watching the film, especially the roadshow version, you get these credits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these gorgeous pictures that scroll, and that's what this film is. So, I mean, that's what
Yeah,
this album is all about. It shows every one of those pictures. So you get like a lot of this early 20th century kind of what's going on in the world. You know, you got flight and blimps and the Wright brothers there.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. And there's one picture, like a little exhibition of the Wright brothers plane. That could be the Wright brothers there, possibly. Use your imagination. And all these all these great stills that you see when the credits roll, I think are really, really pretty.
They're fantastic.
Yeah. So there's that other, look at this lady. She's just ready for a night out on the town. And she has to wear warm clothes in these open air vehicles when it's snowing.
But they do have that little pane of glass.
Oh, and yeah, to block the bugs. And then here's one of my favorite pictures that scroll during the credits, like the women playing golf. And she's just so fashionable.
I love it.
Yeah. And the men are playing polo. There's some black and white photos that you don't see in the film, but here's the picture of some guys getting ready to sail on their yacht. And the last album that I have, well, it's two. It's really, so there's this album where George, the alligator, he narrates the story. It's so funny. Chris says it reminds me of the Ascot Gavotte, and I'll have to plead ignorance on that. I have no idea what that is. So
I don't either.
yeah.
I know what an ascot is, but
Oh,
that's it.
what's that? Maybe that'll
An
help.
as well, an ascot isn't that like kind of like a scarf?
Oh, is he talking about one of the pictures that were in that album?
Oh,
Oh,
that's
something
my fair lady.
from My Fair Lady. Okay. Well, I have seen that a few times, but I just don't recall that from that scene. But anyways,
Yeah, My Fair Lady did not have dancing alligators in it, so
yeah, it didn't. It definitely didn't have an alligator named George. Oh, the racetrack scene from My Fair Lady. Okay. Oh, is that the song from My Fair Lady? Ascot Gavotte. Okay. I'll definitely look that up because I do have that soundtrack.
yeah, I
Yeah.
need to rewatch
It's a
that.
great film. Hey, well, we might talk about Rex Harrison later. Because wasn't he in that?
He was.
Yeah. Rex Harrison and Mr. Oh, the guy from In Search of the Castaways. Clifford Hyde White. Am I getting his name right? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Well, let's hear. You know, the captain of the ship, they sail around all over the southern hemisphere looking for Captain Grant. All right, so this is a fun little storybook album, and I think the neatest thing about, there's just a lot of great pictures in here. So the chocolate cake diet that he's on, and then just while I was coming to town, he got bit by his finger. You know, where's Mrs. Biddle? Nobody likes me. What's wrong with that? Oh, and then that's where the two boys slug the boyfriend. But yeah, Pickering. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And
I
just,
need to look for this
yeah,
album.
it's just great. Here, I love this picture. The Bayum Pum
The
Pum.
Biome Pum
There's,
Pum. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. And there, Are We Dancing? And then, oh, the maid that left the shutters open and all the alligators froze. look at
Idiot
that.
maid.
There's before they freeze. Oh my gosh, we're gonna freeze. And they're wiping him off. John has brown. Yeah, I know, that's funny. John Wallace doesn't have brown hair. He does in this book, but in the movie he's blonde. Yeah, strengthen the dwelling for sure. We'll talk about that. It's one of my favorites. And the alligators, when they dry out, they scare the maid. And oh, by the way, we're in love. Don't forget about us. It's not about alligators.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's all about us driving to Detroit in our car, breaking down, driving our car to or on the coastline, the East Coast, with all these great scenes that are probably matte paintings by our famous matte painter Pete Ellen Shaw. And at the end of the movie, look how young Fred McMurray looks. Wow. So the best thing about this album is so there's a bunch of songs in this album, and then later Disney took all those songs and released them on this other album here. And it's such a cool album because on the back you've got a picture of the Sherman Brothers there in front of that classic sign. And what's really neat about this is that Richard Sherman himself sings Fortuosity, I'll Always Be Irish, and Let's Have a Drink on it.
Oh, wow.
So if you subscribe to my Dropbox, if you're not, send me a DM with your email address, subscribe to my Dropbox, and I'll drop this album. I'll drop this one as well as this one so you can hear Richard Sherman singing Fortuosity, which is this same recording as well.
I realized with all this stuff that you have that I need to get some more Happiest Millionaire stuff.
Well, I kind of just collect the live action film records.
I mean, I have
And then
a few of them. But like all the I have the soundtrack, but I don't have all those other ones. And I truly want, especially for this film.
yeah, they're great. So let's catch up on the comments here.
They're good.
Yeah. Dead, dead, dead.
Dead, dead,
Dead,
dead.
dead. And then Mrs. Biddle. Dead, dead, dead. Who did all those opening credit paintings? I'd really like to know. I don't know. This album doesn't specify who the artist is. If anybody knows, oh, it does say illustrated by Alan Maley and Terry Smith. There you go. So
How did you not know that?
because I didn't read this album, the inside front cover beforehand.
It's Alan Mary and Terry. What's that? Terry
Alan
Smith.
Maley and Terry Smith did all of these fabulous these pictures here. The opening credits, stylish lady, dude in a car.
I also agree with you, Kara. I love the Fortuosity reprise with Tommy Steele and the alligator.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I love it.
Isn't that great?
It
How
makes
did he
me
get the
laugh out
alligator
loud.
to dance backwards? Was that some camera trickery, or did they train George?
Did they have an alligator whisperer on set?
Elmer says, "Who are you talking to, John? You know what they say about people who talk to." Okay, they're talking at the end of the first act of the film. I mean, John Wallace breaks the fourth wall all the time in this film, so you kind of expect it. But then when Fred McMurray joins him in, I just die. I have tears coming down when he does that. He's like, you know what they say about people who talk to themselves. Yeah. Chris says the Mike Sam Singers did so many great cover albums. Yeah, they did. Yep. And then a lot of, so this is one of them. I can't rattle any off the top. I'm sure they did one for Mary Poppins as well. And I think they did the one and only genuine original family band, usually in collaboration with Camerata. I guess that was like a popular thing. Like people loved the Camerata sound back in the 60s and 70s because he would take a lot of film scores and then just reorchestrate them and have the Mike Sam singers sing along with them.
Hmm. Did they do that
And
with Mary Poppins?
I I think so. I'd have to look that up.
See,
Uh,
I'm not. I will admit I'm not as good about music as you guys
yeah,
are. So
yeah,
thank you for.
right. Chris mentioned another one, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, which I just got my hands on. Yeah, that's a good one. I actually like that one better than the one he did for Happiest Millionaire. But anyways, that's all my stuff. And of course, I've got the lobby cards, and we'll kind of go through those as we talk about our favorite scenes. So we didn't even get to the background of the film. Do you have a few historical tidbits to share, Jared?
Just basic basic stuff. It was based on a book, and then the book was turned into a Broadway musical, and the book was called My Philadelphia Father. They
Mm-hmm.
named the Broadway musical Happiest Millionaire. It ran for 271 performances, and, and MGM actually acquired the rights pretty early on, but they didn't do anything with it. And then Disney acquired the rights, I believe, in 1962 to the play, but he actually had no intention of making it a musical to begin with.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah, right.
yeah,
He wanted it to
they
be a
were,
comedy, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
Bill Walsh was actually originally the choice for producer, and he came up with the idea of making it into a musical, but then Walt moved him on to Blackbeard's Ghost instead of this. And I guess Walt, because of the popularity of Mary Poppins, Sound of Music, My Fair Lady being musical, that he finally decided, okay, yeah, we will make it into a musical. It's pretty ironic that Bill Walsh moved over to Blackbeard's Ghost, because Blackbeard's
Mm-hmm.
Ghost actually made a lot more money than Happiest
Yeah.
Millionaire did, which,
Well, that was the height of Disney comedies, and Peter Ustinov, Dean Jones was huge. I mean, Dean Jones was a huge draw. The ladies'
oh, and
man.
I'm sorry, yeah, Chris uh, said the
Yeah,
Broadway play
the
was
right.
actually
The
not a musical.
original
Yes,
was
yes.
just a play, right?
I
Mm-hmm.
apologize. I apologize.
There's a fun
Um,
Disney connection with that. I'll get to here in a sec when you're done.
so that's really all that I have.
Okay. So I talked about the road show a little bit. A couple folks returned from Mary Poppins to choreograph Millionaire. Does anybody know who that is? Who were those folks that did a lot of the choreography with Mary Poppins?
Do not know that.
You'd have to really be a huge Mary Poppins fan to get that one. Mark Bowe, Beaux, and Dee Dee Wood came back to work on this film. And let's talk about the cast a little bit. So
Okay.
I'll throw up the cast photo, which is kind of at the end here. Stare at my blank piece of cardboard there. How exciting! While I
Look
get
at
this
that.
picture.
I love it.
Wow. Well, I've got to put something back there to keep these things from not falling down. So, of course, Mr. Biddle is Fred McMurray, and he plays Anthony J. Drexel Biddle. And of course, we all love all the movies that he's done for Disney. What are some of your favorites? I'll ask in the chat. Fred McMurray films.
Oh, in
I
the
think,
chat.
yeah. Well, and you can chime in
I
too.
mean,
For me,
I love.
Follow Me Boys is my absolute favorite uh, Fred McMurray film, and this would probably be number 2.
Yeah, this is my number one, and
Okay.
I like Follow Me Boys, but I also loved Absent Minded Professor.
Yeah. Yeah, those would be like numbers 3 and 4, and then the Shaggy Dog after that, and then probably Bon Voyage, and then Charlie and the Angel would have to bring up the rear.
I would
Something has
agree
to.
with that.
But sometimes Bon Voyage even beats out the absent-minded professor and Son of Flubber because he's just such a dork in that one too.
That is such a wackadoo movie.
Yeah. Would you guys like to do asking? Would you guys like us to do a show on Bon Voyage?
Um,
Yeah. Chris is giving away all the little tidbits here. Okay, we'll skip to Geraldine Page. So that's Mrs. Duke, and she had one other Disney credit that Chris mentioned, the voice of Madame Medusa in The Rescuers. Interesting. That was her only other Disney thing, at least in film. And then we've got Greer Garson right here, right next to Fred McMurray there. Greer Garson was not really in any other Disney pictures. Chris says, let's do Bon Voyage. Okay, yeah. Snails.
that means
Et
okay. We will
fromage.
we will
Soup.
do Bon Voyage, but I'm not going to be the nicest about Bon
Oh,
Voyage.
that'll
I will
be
let you
fun
know.
then. Then we'll have fun with that. Yeah, Greer Garson is super classy. You're right, Kara. She's outstanding in this.
She
I
is.
saw a couple of, well, I guess they were around Christmas time. I don't know if they're really Christmas films, but have you seen Blossoms of the Dust
No, I
or
saw the show Blossom.
the Singing Nun with Debbie Reynolds? She was
No,
a nun in that. Um, yeah, Greer Garson's voice. She does a great job with It Won't Be Long Till Christmas. I wish she sang more.
what I like about Greer's performance with this is the entire family are a bit, for lack of a better word, they're a bit crazy. They're odd. And she fits well in that family, but she's also like the straight man to it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like she kind of keeps it together, but she does a little dance at the end of
Uh-huh.
the
She likes to
song.
have a little bit of
She
fun.
has a little bit of fun. She will hold an alligator and not have a problem, but she also like is very straightforward. And so that's what I enjoy about her and her character and her performance.
You know why she could hold the alligator and not be afraid of it? You know what the trick was with that?
Alcohol.
She just pretended they were $400 handbags from an old store called I Magnins, a popular department store, an upscale department store in San Francisco. So the feel of the alligator reminded her of like a couple of fancy handbags she bought. so,
Wow.
so that's what she would think in her mind while she was uh, holding the alligators, who, by the way, have names. Did you know that? The alligators.
I did not.
Well,
Well, George. I knew George.
yeah, George. And then in one scene in the film, Fred McMurray grabs one and says Lucy. And in the
Yeah.
album that I have here, the album narrated by George, right,
Sure.
says all the names. So it's George, Gertrude is his wife, Thomas, Richard, and Harry are his kids, and Patience, Prudence, and Penelope are his daughter alligators.
Wait,
So,
but what about Lucy then?
well, he doesn't mention Lucy. I guess maybe Lucy died. I don't know. That's why when I heard him say Lucy, I'm like, dude,
I like
George,
it.
you forgot about one of your kids.
Well, maybe Lucy isn't his wife's, and we just
Oh,
don't talk about her.
okay, yeah. Some little extramarital affairs going on with the alligators. Some polygamous alligators. All right. Well, okay. So Greer Garson, there's this fun little Disney connection here in Blossoms of the Dust. Okay, before I say that, we talked about the original Happiest Millionaire was like the theatrical, well, not theatrical, I guess.
The play.
The play.
Yeah.
Do you know who played the original Mr. Biddle in the play? Alligator Indiscretion. Yeah, that's right. It's all good fun and nature when it comes to alligators. So, who was the
I do
original
not.
Mr. Biddle in the play?
I do not know.
Okay, it was. Does anybody know? He was in a Disney film. Man, Elmer is awesome. He got it. Walter Pigeon.
Wow.
Yeah. Does any who knows what Disney film he played in? Uh, he was in the film Blossoms of the Dust with Greer Garson.
With Greer.
Yeah, and Walter Pigeon. I think at least one Disney film that comes to mind in the
Valiant.
'60s. I think it's
Oh,
'62. I want to say it was 1962. Not a well-known live action film, not on Disney Plus, but one that I really like. Uh, Set in Canada. Yep, there you go. Elmer got it. Yep, Big Red. And oh, that's right. He was the adult version of Bill Mummy's character in Rascal. Yeah, good.
well,
He
here's the
narrated.
thing. Big
Yep.
Red was directed by Norman Tokar, who directed The Happiest Millionaire. Look at that.
Yeah, everything comes full circle.
Full.
All right.
Well, and he also directed Rascal.
Oh wow, he did a lot of movies.
He did. He did Follow Me
Uh-huh.
Boys.
Man, all the ones we love, and probably
And
some
then
that we don't.
well, yeah, he did some goof. He did like the Boatniks or whatever, but he also did
Boat Nicks. Okay.
Sammy the Way Out Seal, which I love Sammy the
Oh,
Way
I
Out
love
Seal.
that. Yeah.
And this might not be uh, this might not be people might not necessarily agree with me, but I love Ugly Dachshund, and he did Ugly Dachshund as well.
Oh, I love that movie too, with the exception of Suzanne Pochette's character. Although I love Suzanne
Yeah, I
Pochette.
agree.
Yeah.
She's a brat, but I
Hmm.
don't know. I enjoyed that one.
We can get off so many tangents here.
We
Let's
can. I'm
reel it
sorry.
in with no, it's okay. I love all these connections. That's really what one thing I love about the Disney films. And Gladys Cooper was Aunt Mary Drexel, and I think this was uh, Chris votes for a Boat Nix episode. All right. Well, we do need to get back into the '70s, definitely. Or was Boat Nix an '80s release?
No, no, I think
It
it's
was like
70s.
right at the end. Elmer says we should do a Kilroy. Okay. And Kara is right. I was just about to mention that. Some of her credits that kind of have Disney connections were Mrs. Higgins in My Fair Lady. Uh, and then one of my favorite films that she's in was one I just saw because it was Christmas time, was The Bishop's Wife with,
Mm,
oh gosh, I'm
uh,
forgetting Cary Grant, right?
yep.
And Loretta. No, what was David Niven is in that, and David Niven's wife in that film.
Well, and did you know Disney remade that movie in '96 called The Preacher's Wife?
Really? Okay.
Yes, Touchstone Pictures released
Oh,
it with
oh
Whitney
wow.
Houston and Denzel Washington.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yep, yep. Cary Grant, David Niven, and it was Loretta. Uh,
Loretta Young.
Loretta
Oh,
Young.
oh my
Yep.
gosh. I
There
could
we
go
go.
off on so many tangents, but I'm going
Yep.
to keep it. Sorry.
All right. We talked about Geraldine Page, and then Tommy Steele is next. Uh, didn't have any other Disney credits, unless somebody out there knows of one. But he was the butler. Not pictured is Hermione Badley, who was Mrs. Worth, and we know her from all kinds of Disney films. Mary Poppins, Adventures of Bullwhip Griffin, uh, uh, and then she was the voice of in one animated film. She was the voice of a character. So I'll let you guys guess that one. But one of my
Well,
favorite. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
it it was it the Aristocats?
yeah, that's it. Madame Adelaide Bonfamille.
Look at that. I finally knew the answer to something.
Yeah, good job. I mean, give yourself some credit. You know a lot of stuff. I don't know any of the '80s movies, and you rattle those off like I know algebraic equations, formulas. So the other honorable mention I wanted to give to her is a film that I watched just recently was The Unsinkable Molly Brown with is that Debbie
Never seen it.
Debbie Reynolds in that too? I get
Sounds
her.
right.
Yeah. She was Buttercup Grogan. She's such a funny character. If you've never seen the film version of The Unsinkable Molly Brown, yeah, go check that out. It's so good. And then we have John Davidson, who played Angers Buchanan Duke, and his other Disney credit was the one and only genuine original family band, the one and only genuine original family band, which is really this movie's sequel.
Gosh.
And then we can't forget about Cordy, Leslie Ann Warren. She was also in Family Band, and I adore her in Clue as Miss Scarlet.
I love her in Clue.
Who doesn't? She's the best. And there is another film I absolutely need to see her in, and that's Victor Victoria. It's on my list to watch. Probably going to watch it this weekend.
I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, because it's got Julie Andrews, and it's got the guy Robert Preston from
Music Man.
Music Man. Yeah,
Which
mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of Music Man in this film as well, by the way.
Yeah, totally. A lot of overlaps. And then really quickly, Paul Peterson played Anthony Biddle. You might recognize him as Jeff Stone from the Donna Reed show. That's where I recognized him from. I used to watch Donna Reed on Nick at Night all the time. So when I saw his character, I was like, that's Jeff. That's Jeff. I absolutely fell in love with the Donna Reed show. Eddie Hodges plays Liv, or Livingston Biddle, and we've seen him before in Summer Magic and had a little role in Johnny Shiloh. But do you know what put him on the map? Eddie Hodges' very first his role it was in a musical, and he played a little boy. We've already mentioned this musical today.
Oliver?
Nope, but good guess. Yeah, where a little boy was a main character. James Garner was in Victor Victoria. Oh, another reason to watch that. Thanks, guys. Let's see who else we got. Joyce Bulifant, who plays Rosemary. She is Cordy's roommate. She was married to James MacArthur. Do you know that?
I did not. I
That's
did
awesome.
know that she was on Mary Tyler Moore show.
Elmer dropped a hint at Eddie Hodges' first role there.
Oh, Music
Good job.
Man?
Yep. He was Winthrop. He was the original Winthrop in the original Broadway production of Music Man. Sean McCory played the police sergeant, so we know a little. Sean McCory, of course, was Ed White Sr. in Follow Me Boys, the unfortunate drunk dad who brought all the melting ice cream to the scout meeting.
Mm-hmm.
It was like so hard to watch that scene. I hate it.
He was also Quaxton on the
Of course.
snowmobile.
Yeah, Chris, I forgot to put that in here. Joyce Bulifant on the Match Game. There you go. Bam. That I think Chris and I have that in common. It's like one of our guilty pleasures is we'll just sit and watch Match Game reruns on YouTube. And the ones with Joyce Bulifant are hilarious. And my last person in this cast is Norm Grabowski, and
he was also on the Snowmobile.
Yeah. Yep. Of course.
He was on the Snowmobile. He worked at the sanitarium.
He worked at the sanitarium, yeah. And of course, I think most of us know him from the Tommy Kirk Annette films, yeah. Monkey's Uncle, Misadventures of Merlin Jones.
Yeah.
So, sure. I mean, I let's talk about our favorite scenes now, or talk either just we'll open it up to the chat and just instead of just
Well,
like going through the whole plot, which I don't want to get drowned in the plot, we just kind of go over our favorite scenes and let the chat chime in. But while they're thinking, you
can
want
I
to,
can I say something really quick?
yeah,
So,
go for it.
like
No, we're on a
a couple
schedule.
things. Well, no, no, no. Things that like when I like have I like I've looked up like writers and stuff like that, and I was surprised. The writer of this movie, AJ Carruthers, he also wrote Never a Dull Moment. And if you've never seen Never a Dull Moment with Dick Van Dyke, I find these kind of things fascinating because we talked about this a little bit earlier when we were talking on the phone
Mm-hmm.
about how it's kind of I feel like with Disney a lot of it is like they're a family, so they use a lot of the same actors and producers and special effects and writers and all of that kind of stuff, and it's just so fun to find this stuff out because
Yeah.
I would have never thought that the writer of The Happiest Millionaire would have written the Never a Dull
Yeah.
Moment or Emil and the Detectives.
Oh, I loved Amon Detectives. Yeah, great film.
So,
And
like,
Never a Dull Moment. If you haven't seen that, I mean, you have to fix that. I mean, that I think Dick Van Dyke is more funny in Never a Dull Moment than Mary Poppins.
oh, for
So
sure, for sure.
he's hilarious. It's just laugh out loud hilarious. It's like Dick Van Dyke hilarious. I mean,
So,
the Dick Van Dyke Show.
yeah, no, it's
It's
great.
so funny. Yeah.
I recently have turned my mother onto watching these old ones, and she had never seen them. And so, and I like to go to the thrift stores as well, and I've been finding a lot of these for cheap and buying them for her. So I found her a Never a Dull Moment. I actually found her Johnny Shiloh for $1.99 at a thrift store.
Wow. There you go.
So
So,
it's fun
oh,
to educate my mother
yeah.
on this.
I'll say a little shout out to Hola, Sandra from Chile. Saludos cordiales desde Chile.
Oh,
Thanks for joining in.
hello.
That's cool. I want to go to Chile someday. Someday. All
Well,
right.
so
Yeah.
my favorite scene, the
Well,
one that I
Elmer
look,
chimed in. He beat you.
he beat me. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
He taught. His favorite scene is the alligators defrosting.
Oh, that's a good scene. But my favorite
Yeah, I
scene
think
is the one that
I've got one. I've got a picture of that one. Yep. There he is.
it's so good. Uh,
Yeah.
no, my favorite scene, the one that I look forward to every time I watch this movie, is actually the Detroit scene.
Okay.
I know "Are We Dancing" is my favorite song, but the Detroit scene is 100% pure Disney to me, and I just love the music so much, and um, I love the cheesy green screen,
No, that makes it.
the swipes when they are like he's fixing something on the car, and then it pans over to the front of the car, and there he is pumping up the tire.
Oh,
Like,
in sync with the music.
yes, it's my favorite scene to watch,
Yeah.
and I just thoroughly enjoy it.
I love how that scene gets started and they're hanging out in Rumpelheimer's ice cream store.
Which is another this is that's another scene that reminds me a bit of The Music Man.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, because they're eating like ice cream. Yeah. Oh, I love the decoration. I love the decor in that one.
Yep.
And I wish the ice cream of the malt shop in Annette was in color so we could see what that looked like in color. The Annette
Mm-hmm.
cereal. But I want to go to Rumpelheimer's and just eat ice cream there. There
Well,
was a place at Disney World called Beaches and Cream. I mean, it's still there, and it used to look like Rumpelheimer's did. they did a redecorating of it and lost all that like early ice cream shop charm, which was really sad because it really looked cool before. But I just want to go eat ice cream there someday and sing about Dakota. I mean Detroit. Because I just think it would be so funny if like John Davidson's like was eating. Hey, how's that ice cream there, Leslie? Dakota. Oh wait, wrong movie. Chris and I were talking last week, thinking that maybe they were working on One and Only Family Band and this at the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if John Davidson accidentally started spitting out the lyrics to Dakota instead of Detroit.
That's one I wish that they would release the soundtrack on officially, but whatever. I digress.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
I
so
know. I have the soundtrack to that film to hit me up on DM if you want a copy of that. So,
uh,
yeah.
I found this little bit of tidbit information. So the song Detroit contains the lyric FOB Detroit.
What does that mean? I'm glad. Okay, you're gonna tell us?
Oh, well, I can look it up.
I don't know what it means. I meant to write that down and research it for tonight, and I completely forgot.
Free on board, referring to purchase goods shipped without transportation charge to a specific place.
Oh, so you
But
can order the car from Detroit and it would be free on board, so you wouldn't have to pay shipping?
I'm guessing,
Freight,
yeah, so
freight
freight
on
on
board.
board. Yeah.
Okay.
But so according to the Shermans, Disney overheard them singing that song, but misheard the phrase as SOB.
That's what I thought it was. I was like, what?
And scolded them for using such language in a Disney film. And then they corrected Disney, and they all thought that was hilarious, and they all laughed about it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty funny because I hear FOB every time, when I'm singing it in the car or whatever on my way to Detroit.
Yeah. Hey, Sandra, send me a direct message with that question, and we can chat later. So, okay, so let's talk about this scene here. Elmer said the alligator scene was one of his favorites. There's like, so when they discover that everything's frozen in there, like, one of the funniest lines, and it's like if you're not paying attention, you won't get it. But Mr. Biddle yells out, "Give me an axe!" And Mrs. Biddle's like, "Anthony, no, not for Florence, the alligators," because it was Florence who left all the windows open, and so he's upset with her. He kind of goes a little over the top with how he acts towards Florence, the maid, calls her an idiot girl sometimes, which is like a little like, whoa, Mr. Biddle, chill on Florence,
Well, she
is a little,
I get it.
A little ditzy that she left the windows open and can't stand alligators. And he's like, get an axe, not for Florence, for the alligators. So an interesting thing about Florence, she lets out a couple of screams, and if you listen to one of the screams, it's the same sound bit that they use in Pirates of the Caribbean for Carlos's wife when she's getting shot at and she closes the shutters. That scream is one of the screams that you hear in Happiest Millionaire. Like one of her last screams is it. Yeah. Well, somebody left my mouse habitat open and I lost him, I would freak out too. Yeah, totally. Like if you came home to a bunch of frozen Mises, yeah, I would totally want to axe down Florence.
It's not her house. It's not her house, and she airs it out so that because it smells bad.
Because of the smell of the alligators. Yeah. Chris mentioned that his favorite song was Bayum Pum Pum, and that scene That's a
That
fun
was my
scene.
Yep, that's my third favorite scene is by Pum Pum.
Okay.
And Leslie Ann Warren can dance.
Oh, she can. Oh, if she did show it off here, she did in Family Band with
Mm-hmm.
those leg kicks. Oh, gorgeous leg kicks.
Yep,
Yep.
she's great.
Hmm. Yeah, and then we get to see a little bit of Joyce Bulifant in action, and she just makes that song. And I love her at the dance party for with all the guys.
You know what I love about the dance party? I wrote this down in I in my notes. Jared's comments about the movie. I love how they recycle. I love how they recycle the music in the film itself. For example, when Cordy goes off to school and goes to the dance, they're playing Valentine Candy and Watch Your Footwork, but like in a different,
Oh wow.
in
Oh,
different version. So like the quick step or whatever
oh,
those dances are.
okay. So a different tempo or different. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So if you go back, if you didn't notice, go back to that
I
scene,
didn't.
and I'm like, literally, you were just singing in the mirror to yourself about Valentine Candy, and now you're dancing to it. Hilarious.
Since you brought up Valentine's Candy, that is an example of really great attention to detail and lyrics by the Sherman Brothers. Because I was listening to that song today, and she's singing about like she's like Valentine's candy or boxing gloves, and then one of the lines is like, "Is it a sonnet by Shelley or Rover Boys?" And I'm like, "What is that? A sonnet by Shelley?"
That's on it.
So I a sonnet like a poem,
Right.
like a verse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked it up, and that's actually a 19th or early 19th century romantic poet named Percy Shelley, who wrote like a lot of very deep thought, romantic, kind of make you kind of think and analyze. Like his most famous poem is called Ozymandias. Have you heard
Okay.
that one before?
I have not.
The
No.
only reason why I recognize Ozymandias is because it's the title of the best episode in the series Breaking Bad.
Oh my gosh. I've never seen that show.
Oh, so that's one of my guilty pleasures. But, yeah, because it's a poem about a couple of rocks in the desert that are just kind of like half buried, and it kind of represents, uh, you know, depicts something that's really strong that like lost all of its strength. And Kara Alban, okay, Kara says that's where I heard that. Yeah, and so they use that title because I'm not going to give spoilers away, but there's a scene where the main character Walter White is lying down in the dirt, kind of buried, half buried a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just kind of like, uh, it's the lowest point, But
Hmm.
yeah, great song. So that's like the Valentine's candy or boxing gloves. So another analogy is sonnets by Shelley or Rover Boys. And I didn't know what Rover Boys was either, so I looked that up. And that's a series of juvenile books published in the time frame 1899 to 1926, because this movie takes place in like 1916.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been a very popular series of books. And the Rovers are these boys at a military school who are really adventurous, prank playing, kind of flirtatious guys who get into a lot of trouble with the authorities. So it's just like the Sherman Brothers, how they come up with this stuff.
They're so
They
good. It's weird that you say that because I wrote down some lyrics as well that I was just so impressed by how they come up with this
Mhm.
this stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, they do their homework, and I'm sure they've got all these like little phrases or tidbits written down because they got to make things rhyme because that's how they write music or their lyrics to their music. Sonnet by Shelley and Rover Boys are a couple of things of that time that were really popular. So I just
they're
love
so
that
good.
attention to detail they
Yeah,
have.
for
What
sure.
makes them great songwriters?
I love the in the There Are Those song
Mm-hmm.
between Aunt Mary and
Oh, and Mrs. Duke,
Mrs.
yeah.
Duke. Mrs. Duke. I wrote it down. So Aunt Mary sings, "There are those who flaunt prosperity," and then Mrs. Duke says, "There are those who flaunt austerity." And then this line is so great: "Posing cozy on their rosy status quos." It's so Disney.
Yeah, it is.
It's it's such a great line, and it's such a great rhyme. And then right after
Posing
that,
cozy on their rosy status quos.
yes,
Ah,
posing cozy on their
great.
rosy status quos. And then on top of that, then John says poison dart. I mean raisin
Raisin
tart,
tart.
because he's because he's just trying to get them to stop.
Oh, I know. His little comical interjet poison dart, I mean strawberry tart.
It's so great.
It's just that is see, that is just a little tiny example of why this movie's so fun. You
Mm-hmm.
and it's one that you can watch over and over again and pick up little things like that. It's just, this movie is just such a fun little film to just chill out on the couch and take your time watching. It doesn't rush through everything, but it kind of what was the breezes through. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it.
I agree.
It tells
The music
a
helps.
story. It's a nice pace, and then the songs are nice and spaced out, so you don't go more than 10 or 15 minutes without a song. It's
Yep.
just it's just a perfect Disney film. So, anybody else have favorite scenes? I can share one of mine while you guys are thinking. So we got about 15 more minutes to hit the 90-minute mark. We're going to try to keep these to 90 minutes. Jared and I talked about that today. Uh, let's see.
So what's your
I have them
favorite scene? Have we
written
talked
down
about
here,
it?
and I can't find. Oh, all right. Okay, we haven't talked about the engagement party at the Biddles.
I actually wrote down one of my favorite quotes is from that
So
party.
okay, so the engagement party, they just got done this crazy whirlwind tour of engagements up in New York. You saw like all those invitations being tossed onto that silver platter.
Right.
I love that. I love how. I mean, that's a couple weeks straight of parties, or maybe almost a month. But that's just such a great film technique they use. You know, a montage of those little things being thrown onto the platter, and then you see a few scenes from each party, and then you see
But I
Cordy and
feel
Angie
like,
kind of getting tired of it all, right?
yeah, well, I know. I feel like that technique that they use is not, it's from earlier than the 60s, but
Yeah,
it's from more so the kind of the time frame that the film is actually set in,
yeah. Like
which
if
is,
you watch It's a Wonderful Life, there's a section of the film where like the newspapers spin around, or then you get like the whole time when uh you know during the war, rubber drives, scrap drives, and then everybody had
mm-hmm,
a job in the war, right?
yeah, for sure.
And it kind of shows you what 10 years in the time of the life of George Bailey. So they do a really good job with the 1 month um, time here. I don't know if I could do that 1 month of parties like that. Maybe a couple days. Caleb says he's listening to the soundtrack right now. Awesome. Yeah, I should figure out how to. Well, I don't think you can do that with the live, but that's great. Yeah, good job. Anyway, so back to so they get done with this whirlwind tour, and they come home, and everything's so extravagant in New York and proper, and all these like socialites and aristocrats are just having a good time in their element, right? Uh, Very what nouveau riche they call it, like Mrs. like
Mm.
Aunt Mary says, and
Aunt
there are
Mary.
those, right? Aunt Mary, who she ends up befriending at the end, Mrs. Duke, because they kind of see eye to eye on how this wedding thing should proceed.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so they get back, and it's engagement party time. And who's the first person you see? It's
Isn't it
Norm
Norm?
Grabowski.
Yes.
And this is like the Disney in me is like, okay, Norm Grabowski from Monkey's Uncle and Merwin Jones.
The
This
the
can't be
Gnome-mobile.
good.
Right.
I said Aristocats.
Did you really?
I didn't
Did
say
you?
aristocrats. Okay.
You have you have
I'm
Disney on the
I've
brain.
Disney running through my veins, huh? Thanks. So it's just like, okay, Norm Grabowski here. This party's it's gonna be hopping. It's gonna be the Mr. Biddle style party, which is exactly what it is. You know, he introduces Mrs. Duke to Norm's character, Joe Turner, I think is his name. He's like, yeah, Mr. Biddle's an okay guy. He's okay in my book. Put her there, Mrs. Duke. You know? And the other guy cracks me up. It's like, okay, this must be this dude's first time at a party. And how much time did he spend combing his hair to make it like curl up at the ends like that? Do you know which kind of time? It's just
I
like,
think
okay, it's like Mr. Biddle's like, yeah, this is, I can't remember his name, but he's like, he's one of my best boxers. And he's like, yeah, Mrs. Duke. And I would have beat the guy if we took it to the third round because I had him. And the next thing you know, uh, Mr. Biddle disappears and he's singing an aria.
well, naturally.
And Mrs. Duke is like, does Mr. Biddle always present himself in concert at parties? And we're like, yeah, he's really good. He's saying Pagliacci, you know. One little cool thing in the scene is if you look at who's playing the flute in that little chamber ensemble there.
Okay. Which is
That
what I always do. I always look to see who's playing.
Yeah, you always look to see who's playing the flute, right? That is Richard Sherman in cameo. So
Look at that.
yeah, watch the film. Watch him sing. Look to the flute. It's right to Fred McMurray's left, sitting down, and he has a little flute solo that he plays. You know, he does a good job. I don't know if he's actually playing the flute, but he makes it look believable. Somebody told me Robert Sherman is in that scene too, but I can't find him. He must be hiding in the back. So
maybe maybe he's a sour pickle.
Yeah, things just kind of de-escalate after that, right? Everything comes crashing down at that party, which is where it would if it was going to happen, it's going to happen there, right?
Right.
So, I didn't even change the things around. So, what was another one of your favorite scenes or songs?
We actually already talked about all of my absolute favorite scenes.
Does anybody else have anything? I guess this is a picture at the party. I don't remember this in the movie when they all got together and took this picture, but apparently they did off camera. Because definitely she wasn't happy as she's smiling here and all that stuff. So
One other quote that I actually really did enjoy from this is when Angie is trying to impress Mr. Biddle at the meal, and he leaves and he goes into the parlor, and Cordy says, "You've got to stand up for him." And Angie goes, I think he'd punch me in the nose." And Cordy goes, "Well, punch him back, or better still, punch him first."
Punch him first. Yeah.
I love all of that scene. She's like, "Angie, I'm trying. You want him to like you. I'm trying to tell you how to do that."
Mm-hmm. Boy, and he took that lesson to heart and showed Mr. Biddle how to do some jiu-jitsu. Took him down hard. I love that. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's a great scene. Anybody else? Okay, Chris, the Let's Have a Drink on It. Okay, that's one of my favorite scenes and one of my favorite songs from the film. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Chris is doing this for his next podcast and family band. So I don't know. I think they were going to try to do that later this month or next month. So yeah, that's gonna be
Yay,
great.
I'm excited.
They'll really dive deep. We're kind of diving deep on this one film, but they'll probably go a little deeper than we do. Um, so that scene, it's towards the end of the film, right after everything de-escalates at the Biddle party, and Cordy discovers uh, that that Angie's not. He's going to take over the family business, and in fact, Mrs. Duke has already arranged for her private railroad car to take them all down to Hot Springs, Arkansas for their honeymoon. That was like the final straw. Like, you're gonna come with us on our honeymoon to Hot Springs, Arizona? Yeah, and then 2 weeks we'll be back to New York for board meetings. And that was just like, all right, this isn't happening. And meanwhile, there's a scene where the wedding invitations don't get mailed out for the Duke's side,
Mm-hmm.
And John Lawless finds them stashed under a bunch of clothes that were meant for a charity drive or something, and so that doesn't go over very well with Mrs. Duke or Angie. So uh, meanwhile, Cordy's crying. She's run upstairs saying, "I don't want to get married," and Angie's like, "I don't want to get married either. I'm out of here." And Mr. Biddle says, "Hey, John, go follow John, go follow Angie, make sure he's okay." And so he does that, and Angie ends up going to Clancy's, where a bit of the River Shannon flows. So it's like an Irish pub, sort of. Now, is it a speakeasy kind of Irish pub? Because during the fight, I think the fight gets out of hand, and there's this guy that draws this curtain thing that covers the bar,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, are they trying to hide the fact that they're serving booze here? So I'm not sure
Oh,
if it's Prohibition era or not.
well, wouldn't the oh my gosh, wouldn't the police officer shut it all down
Yeah,
if
I
that was
guess
the
it would.
case?
So I'm not sure what that was. Why they he put that scrim in front of the bar. But anyways, uh, the John and Angie sing this terrific song, and I love Kara's comment here where she says all the songs Tommy Steele sings is just addicting to watch. His chemistry and Irish charm steal the show, and that is 100% the gospel truth. he his dancing, he has so much energy and charisma, and just makes you
Mm-hmm.
smile. Like the fortuosity number at the very beginning is like one of my favorite Disney songs ever. I mean, like Chris said, that's played on the Main Street Loop, and probably 9/10 of people walking down Main Street have no idea that song is from a Disney movie.
Right. Well, isn't there a shop called Fortuosity as well
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
on in Main
On
Street in
Main Street.
Disneyland?
Yep. And so that's just one of my favorite scenes too, because you're watching the credits and you transition to this drawing of this street in Rittenhouse Square, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there you see like a carriage with a horse, and then that ice truck, and Tommy's sitting there. It's a drawing, and then it transitions to live action. I just love that technique that Disney uses. Like
Yeah.
transitions from drawing to live action, and then it proceeds forth in live action. I just
Mm-hmm.
think that's so cool. So speaking of Fortuosity, Chris says that was played on Main Street, and there's another song in Happiest Millionaire that was also used on the Main Street Loop. And I don't know right off the top of
I
my
don't know
head.
either. For some reason, I keep thinking Valentine candy, but I could be completely wrong with that.
Yeah, maybe Detroit. I don't know.
I don't think it's Detroit.
No, definitely not. Let's have a drink on it. Or is it? Let's have a drink on it.
It might be that one too.
That's my guess. Let's have a drink on it. All right. I don't know. Uh, oh wow, lots of comments about. Oh yeah, yeah. So, anyways, they're singing that song, and they're both. John's like, "Give me a stout," and he never drinks the whole time. His objective there, and I think he came up with this on his own, is to get Angie drunk and into a fight, so he gets arrested, so he doesn't leave town because they still want. And Kara says she thinks that the bar gets raided because of the fight. This is before Prohibition, I think. Yeah, pre-Prohibition. That's right. Prohibition was 1920. So booze was still legal. Yep. Before World War I, so not Prohibition. Thanks, guys.
And it
I
is
didn't
Let's
have
Have a
time
Drink
to.
on It.
Yep. Oh, okay, so that was my guess. Yeah. Overture, the film is great. The fight in the bar is great. John pretty much saves the day. He saves the whole marriage, right? I've heard people call this movie the Happiest Millionaire, hosted by the Happiest Butler, or something. Because really, like John Wallace has more of a leading role in this film than any other character. I feel like he's everywhere.
He is.
Yeah,
He is.
and he really makes it so much fun. Yep. So he saves the day. John goes to jail, or Angie goes to jail, and then you know, Cordy or Fred McMurray comes down to the jail, has a good talk with him, convinces him that hey, you need to man up, and if you want to elope, do it, but marry my daughter, and they live happily ever after. Well, sort
so
of.
yes. So I have a couple little quote unquote fun facts about this. So The
Yeah.
Happiest Millionaire is based on a true story,
Mm-hmm.
and so the real Cordelia Drexel Biddle's marriage to Angier did not result in a happy ending.
No. I have that written down here too. Yeah.
They had two sons. One of them was born 7 months after they got married, which back in 1915, that was, I would imagine that's pretty taboo. They were divorced within a few years,
Mm-hmm.
and Angier actually died young, not long after that, in a boating accident.
Oh my gosh. I had no
Also,
idea.
he was
Wow.
31 and Cordelia was 17 when they got married.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. This is what I think is interesting. So in real life, after Cordy's brother Tony in real life married Angier's sister Mary, who was 10 years his senior.
Oh my gosh. No. Such were the days, I guess, huh?
Such were the days. This is also another little. Sorry, I'm moving on to fun facts.
Yeah, let's move on to fun facts. I've got a few.
Cordelia is from Philadelphia and Angie is from New York City, but in real life, Leslie Ann Warren was born in New York City, and John Davidson, although not born in Philadelphia, he was born in Pittsburgh. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Huh. Kind of a role reversal.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And this was actually, they wanted Haley Mills to do this one, but it became so dormant. This project became so, like, they didn't do anything with it until after her contract ended. And they still offered the role of Cordelia to Haley, but she turned it down. Which I love
really?
Haley Mills. I love Haley Mills, but I'm glad she turned it.
Yeah. You really needed a strong voice, and Haley, although she does have she does sing well, but not to the, I think, level that you required for like a grand musical picture that this is.
Right.
Probably didn't have the stamina or couldn't dance as well. I don't know how well she dances, but I know that when Haley Mills does go to dances, bad things happen, like her skirt gets cut and things like that. So we don't need to see that. And
One
Yeah, go
last
for it.
thing that I mean, there I found all sorts of stuff, but one other thing that I found was kind of intriguing is after it was initially released, uh, the movie was unseen for a lot of years. It didn't have any theatrical re-releases or even any TV screenings. A lot of times they would release the movie on like the Magical World or the Disneyland or whatever the
Disney's
Disney
Wonderful
anthology.
World, or yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh. Hmm.
none of it didn't air, and so the first time it was seen after that was 1983 when it was released on video,
Wow, that's crazy.
which I think is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, interesting. Well, I've got a few fun facts about casting. Uh,
Okay.
the Sherman brothers, and you mentioned A.J. Carruthers, who wrote the screenplay, right?
Uh, yes, I believe
Okay, they
so.
wanted Rex Harrison to be Biddle,
Hmm.
and Rex Harrison really wanted the role, but Walt wanted this for a comedy, and his first choice was Brian Keith.
Oh.
And I guess because he was fresh off the the comedy Moon Pilot. He is very funny in Moon Pilot. Don't get me wrong. So, but they did convince Walt to make it into a musical, um, and Walt had moved on to Burt Lancaster being Mr. Biddle at that point. But McMurray was eventually selected over Lancaster and Harrison. Also, one really interesting thing, Walt, I think he really wanted someone to play Mr. Biddle that he could see himself in,
Yeah.
and so that was why he went with McMurray over Rex Harrison. Walt couldn't see himself played by Rex Harrison, and according to A.J. Carruthers and many Disney fans, I think he always believed. Well, Walt always believed that Fred was the perfect actor to play him. He saw a lot of himself in Fred McMurray, and when Fred was on screen, like we talked about this with Follow Me Boys. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, and Walt also saw a lot of himself in Biddle. You know, a couple of
Yeah.
stalwart, patriotic Americans. Uh, I wrote something down here about Walt. Um, so you see this in the film, like Walt Disney, right? He was a man that always wanted to prove to others that he could do something when others said he couldn't. You know, just take for example like Disneyland or Snow White. All these, Cal Arts, the school he wanted to set up. A lot of people say, Walt, you're dreaming too big. You can never do this stuff. And all through the film, people like the Marines, for example, or like when they said that, oh, he wanted to start like a little Marine or like a fighting group with his boxer dudes
Mm-hmm.
and do, train with the Marines so they could become Marines. But he would also include himself in that training. Like he felt he still had a shot at the Marines, and the Marines would kind of like little hint at like, you know what, you're too old, you can't do this kind of stuff, and you can't fight, and Mr. Biddle would get offended by that. And it's so funny when he would get offended and get upset, like the ladies in the room would all be, uh-oh, here we go. He was very stubborn that way. um, but you see a lot of that attitude with Mr. Biddle and Walt Disney. So the Marine dinner, that's a great example of that, where they actually go to the boxing ring and he knocks
Mm-hmm.
the heck out of that Marine.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong with that? So they're out after he beats them up and they're walking out. Well, maybe you can be a Marine. What's wrong with that? And Fred McMurray's like, what's wrong with that? You see that scene with all the ladies, kind of like, oh, what's going on out there? I just love the parallel that this movie has with Walt and Fred McMurray or Mr. Biddle's character. It's kind of cool. And
I
then
agree.
there's some fun uh, stuff about, well, okay, continue with Fred McMurray. Even critics, like a lot of critics didn't like this movie at all. They
Right.
they thought it was a one Time critic wrote about McMurray, said his impersonation is eccentric but not lovable. He is in fact a bore. McMurray dashes around his vast house conducting calisthenic Bible classes, honking at ambulatory alligators, roughing up his guests with show-off fisticuffs, show-off opera arias, show-off opinions. But isn't that all the reasons why we love Fred McMurray in this movie?
Yeah.
It's
It, but how, I wonder how did they promote this film? Was it a kids, like a family film? One thing I didn't write down exactly what it said, but I'll paraphrase. But like Roger Ebert reviewed it as well, and he didn't care for it, and he said like the music was not memorable except for, I think he liked the Irish "I'll Always Be Irish" song,
yeah.
but he goes, the kids will have nothing. It's not really appealing to kids except for maybe the alligators, and I guess I can kind
Mm-hmm.
of understand that.
Well, yeah, probably why they did the children's album with George.
Yeah, I mean it's long. It is long. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
kid stuff in it,
Hmm.
so I just wonder, like, if they were promoting it as a kids film, then I can kind of see why people would be. If they weren't, I don't understand because I do appreciate the film.
Yeah. Chris is tossing a lot of quotes out here. And Kara agrees with me. The Time critic was like, what movie were you watching? He must not like Fred McMurray. Maybe he hated Double Indemnity or The Apartment. Because I think The Apartment, Fred McMurray did The Apartment before this. The
I
uh
think so. Wasn't The Apartment 59? I could be
Jack
way off
Lemmon.
with that.
No, he did it while he was doing his Disney films because there's a really cool story about how like he did all the absent-minded professor, son of Flubber films. Then he did Apartment, and he has a really raunchy, nasty character in there. And
Mm-hmm.
one day he was in Disneyland, and this lady and her child saw him in the park, and she whacked him with her purse. Said, "I took my son to watch Apartment because we loved your Disney films, and I have never seen such an obscene picture in all of my day. Whack!" And it was after that he decided to never do any films like that. He was going to turn into the father figure, wholesome movie type.
I couldn't imagine
Yeah,
walking up to a complete stranger and whacking them.
she must have really been offended by that film. Oh, that kind of like wrecked his image. It's funny that even Walt let him do that. I don't know if Fred McMurray was under contract, but
But
Walt wouldn't let Haley Mills do something like that.
I just looked it up though. The Apartment was made in 1960 it was released.
Okay, so it was after the
So
Shaggy Dog.
that
Then,
was maybe 1 year after the
yeah,
Shaggy Dog with like,
yeah, but Absent Minded Professor was 61, so it was between those two.
mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we'll kind of wrap things up here, but I did want to pay homage again to Greer Garson, who is just so awesome in this film. She originally wanted to play Mrs. Biddle, but Walt thought Garson was a bit too grand for the role, but it turns out that she's just perfect for it. Um, so Geraldine Page was actually given the role of Mrs. Biddle, and Walt chose Greer Garson for Mrs. Duke. So Page thought the role was a little too small, the Mrs. Biddle role, and she really got into Mrs. Duke, and it turned out perfect because she is like absolutely
Yeah.
wonderful as Mrs. Duke, just perfect for that mama's boy mama.
Well, and I think that John Davidson looks more like her.
Yeah. Oh,
Is
oh,
more
yeah.
believable.
Good. Yeah. Mother daughter,
Mother
mother
son.
son relationship. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Garson was really fired up to play Mrs. Duke, but eventually she was persuaded to play Mrs. Biddle. And it's funny, as she would watch Paige do her role as Mrs. Duke, she would constantly say, like, I want to wear those clothes. That was supposed to be my role. But she was a pro. And one day on set, Carruthers noticed her walking up and down the staircase, that beautiful staircase.
Oh,
I got Duke and Biddle reversed. Well, did I? Did I say it backwards? Because
I
uh, they wanted to play originally. Garson wanted to play Mrs. Biddle, and Paige, or Garson wanted to play Mrs. Duke, and Paige wanted to play Mrs. Biddle. That's how it was assigned, but they flipped it, so it was a reversal. But anyways, you know, Greer Garson was a little bummed out, but she's a pro, and one day AJ Carruthers saw her walking up and down the staircase, and he was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "One of my entrances is coming down the staircase," and I know exactly which entrance she's talking. It's like when they're doing "I'll Always Be Irish," and she sees them. She's up in the loft, right, or the landing of the staircase, and she looks down, and then she makes this fun little entrance down there to go use the phone to tell the employment agency that John's going to take the job. And she's like, "Well, Mr. Crothers, I live in this house. I lived here for many, many years. I would not have to look down when I come down the staircase." So she was practicing going up and down this flight of stairs. Just a true
yeah.
professional, she was. Um, yeah, and Cordelia Drexel Biddle, the author of the book you mentioned, she absolutely loved Greer Garson portrayal of her mother. Said it was spot on, and really thought that she was a bright spot in the film. So,
Oh, that's cool to hear because
yeah.
I agree.
So it all ended up really well. They were both perfectly cast. I mean, uh, so that was like one of the instances where Walt was wrong. Because she thought Garson was a little too grand, and it turns out that she was perfect for that. So okay, well we went long again, but you know, whatever. We're having a good time, and I'm glad everybody in the chat is joining in and having a good time along with us. Just kind of glancing over my notes, anything I left out. Uh, I love the language up to the first kiss. Like that's another funny thing about this film is they have that first kiss. They just met each other like probably 30 minutes prior, but that whole scene, "Are we dancing?" Like she's totally fallen in love with this dude. Love at first sight, and they're
It is.
outside talking about the car, and he's like, "Yeah, that Rolls Royce. I've been up to 75 miles per hour, smooth as silk. The suspension system is really remarkable." Kiss. I love that scene. It's just you feel like it's okay. Like you feel connected to them. It's just they meet and 30 minutes later they kiss, but I don't have a problem with it. Just the way he saves her from that one guy, and the way they're eyeing each other all night, and then and then John Davidson has outstanding hair. He's got a wave that I wish I could comb into my hair. And a gorgeous part. I mean, I just love his hair.
That's hilarious.
All right. Well, any closing comments or thoughts from the chat, or Jared, do you have any final things you want to shout out?
No, this is other than this is one of my favorites. I think on my Instagram account, I did watch every Disney flick, and this is one of my top 10 Disney
Yeah.
films of all time. And I think it's
Yeah.
deserved.
Yeah. It's way up there. If I had to pick a top 10, it would be tough for me to leave it out. of my top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hair Envy, Dimples Envy on John Davidson. Even when he hosted Hollywood Squares, I guess I kind of had a thing for him. I met him once. Did I tell you that?
No.
He sang the role of the Wizard of Oz in Wicked. And when we went to see Wicked, when it came to Dayton, Ohio, and I lived up there, we would always go down. Whenever we saw a musical in Dayton, it was really easy to meet everybody at the end of the show. And we got to meet John Davidson. And when I met him, I said, "Hey, man, way to go belting it out with Detroit." And he laughed. So,
Awesome.
so yeah, that was a fun little thing. But I kind of like John Davidson. I've always liked him. He's on Instagram. You can follow him. He's still
I do.
active
Yeah,
doing stuff.
I follow.
Yeah.
I follow him on Instagram.
So is Leslie Ann Warren. You can follow her too. Yeah. Yeah. I got the stage door with John Davidson. That's right. And we got the stage door with the dude that played, he was like a short guy. I don't know if he was a munchkin. Was TikTok in Wicked?
I've never seen Wicked.
I can't remember. TikTok of Oz is a character in the Oz book. Like he was in Return to Oz too.
He was in Return to Oz.
Yeah, and I think there was the character that played him, or he was a short guy, but we got to meet him, and my kids got a kick out of his character, and they had fun. So yeah, finally, my last thing is a Bach. Bach is a Munction. Okay, no TikTok. That's right. I could not remember. Oh, that's right. Did they do a commentary of this? Is that on the DVD? I need to watch that.
A Family Band.
Remember. Did they do they did a commentary on Family Band. That's right. Yeah. I watched that in preparation for our Family Band show that we did. Go back and check that out. It's on my YouTube channel. Finally, I'm a dad, and there's one scene in this film that is really touching to me, and that's the scene where Mr. Biddle comes to kind of rescue his daughter from one of the parties in New York, and he's got to catch the 10 o'clock train, and they ride in this taxi together, and she's just like so tired. She wants to go home and sleep in her bed for a week, and there's just a really touching song. It's like a reprise of What's Wrong with That, and he just sings about how much he loves his daughter, how he wishes she was home, he misses her footsteps on the stairs, but he's still proud of her and excited for the marriage, sort of. But it's kind of a relationship that I want. Like when I watch this, it reminds me of that's the relationship I need to have with my own daughter. And I get a lot of that from this film, how a father should treat his daughter.
His daughter, yeah.
But he loves his kids, and it really shows. He has a hard time letting go of Cordy, but in the end, he knows it's the right thing to do. He can't keep her in this little world. Yeah, and thanks, Jim, for mentioning that. Walt Disney did cry at the scene when he saw it, and it did remind him of his daughter. I don't know if it was Sharon or Diane that it reminded him of, but Walt had a soft spot for his daughters. I mean, he drove them to school every day, and yeah, thanks for that little tidbit there, Jim. Oh, so AJ Carruthers' widow mentioned that. Okay, that's cool. So that's the source. But great film. I love it. I love all the songs. I can listen to them over and over again. The Sherman Brothers were perfect with this. It's on the level with Mary Poppins. Maybe not as funny, but there are some funny moments. But I just love this film. Like you said, it's a top 10. It would be I'd have a tough time not putting it in my top 10 if I had to choose a top 10. So yeah, so that'll do it, everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Jared.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. I love this film, and I'm glad that there's so many of you all love it as well. So
yeah. All right, and Kara's going to name a mouse after Cordelia Drexel Biddle. So uh, that was one of the objectives that I had going into this live stream, was to inspire you to name a mouse after a Disney character. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll post this up on Instagram and you can rewatch it if you like. So thanks,
Good night,
Jared.
everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.